Hey, everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and that guy over there is...
I am Chris.
And Chris, he always is. How you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful. It's week 3. I'm excited. Really hitting a stride with our show. We're hitting our stride with fantasy leagues themselves. And just the season is in full blast. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing all right. I forgot to tell you this off camera, or ask you at least. Hey, Chris, do you want to become an influencer / a shill? We got an email today saying that we could be an influencer and some shill for some products that we could, try and get people to buy. You're interested in that?
If it's products that pertain to our genre of content and I can use it and tell people how I feel honestly, then yeah, I would be interested. But otherwise,
Seaweed Farms, that's what it's for.
Seriously.
No, I don't have no idea what it is.
Oh,
I didn't know really. I was at work and I didn't open the email.
Was this in your spam folder?
No, it just popped up on my phone in the amazing FFB at gmail.com. And this is also not a reason to shoehorn the email into the thing. It's just like it is a real thing. If you go and look in the email account, it's there.
I'll have to check that.
I was like, oh, that's an interesting email. And then I was like, I wonder what kind of things that we would be kind of trying to get us to show,
Well, there's podcast stuff, YouTube stuff like cameras, mics. There's
that I would be interested in.
Fantasy terms, it might be more like how people have
unicorns,
not that type of no hobbits, no
swords, wands, perhaps.
No, more like content, like when people sell their draft kit or their rankings or something, like maybe something like that. Analytics, paywalls, that's a thing. People make money on this, not us, but hey, one day maybe this is the beginning of a new thing. Maybe
I'll email back for some details. We're gonna do all of our business work like in episodes. We're just gonna hash it out.
Go. We'll stream it live. No, I'm just kidding. Not a good plan.
Yeah. No. All right, Chris. So we're Amazing Fantasy Football. We are here to bring you some matchups this week and talk about what is supposed to be behind the scenes things in front of the scenes.
Business emails.
Chris, I believe you have some injury updates for us on some players. Maybe we're going to be talking about some Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some.
I don't have a Barkley update, should I? Do we miss one right off the bat?
I think so. My bad. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to call you out on that.
No, we went through them off air. Point is,
all the things to edit, maybe that part right there. And if not, oh well.
Let's go through what I've got, and then we'll see if
you
we
do
can
that, and I'll look at
Saquon
while you're doing
it. There you go. I've got Jarvis Landry was put on IR with knee MCL. Josh Jacobs did not practice. Had a red non-contact jersey on Thursday. Most of these, I think, all are Thursday orientated in terms of practicing. Odell Beckham Jr. will play, recovering from his ACL. So that's brand new. Not brand new. I mean, it's a couple hours, but that's news to me. Because right before that, it was iffy. Game time, I think, was the term used. Onward. Tua, turns out he has fractured ribs. He is out. That's all we've got now, and probably
Jacoby Brissett will be taking his spot.
Yeah, and it didn't look good in the limited time he had, and we'll get to that later in the matchups. Lamar Jackson did not practice Thursday due to a non-COVID illness, so probably going to be fine, but let's keep an eye on that. This one kind of popped up on my radar. Deontay. Why can't I always just call him Deontay. The wide receiver for Steelers Thursday did not practice with a knee. Deontay Johnson, right? Yeah, that's it. That's why I can never remember it. It's Johnson. Big Ben, speaking of the Steelers, left pectoral muscle was back at practice in a limited capacity Thursday. Darnell Mooney, Chicago Bears wide receiver, limited Thursday with a groin. Tyron Williams, wide receiver, Lions, was put on IR with a concussion. So that was kind of an interesting turn of events there. That's 3 weeks minimum. Here's some more IR news from the Texans. Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback, and Nico Collins, the receiver, were both put on IR. Tyrod was a hamstring. Another kind of interesting turn of events there. It's probably just like the new 3 weeks. Let's just make sure you're okay kind of thing. Nico Collins was a shoulder. Dalvin Cook did not practice Thursday with an ankle. I got a little bit of context there for you there. Give me just a moment. This is from Andrew Kramer on Twitter. As Dalvin Cook deals with an ankle injury, the throttle is still forward on his workload. Zimmer said, quote, "At this stage, it's time to get some wins. Dalvin's a tough guy. If he can't play, then there's a reason why he's not playing. He makes us go. So we'll continue to play him," end quote. So just worth keeping an eye on. Sounds like he's going to go, but, very important player there in fantasy terms. Elijah Mitchell, running back, San Francisco, did not practice Thursday due to a stinger in his shoulder. Trey Sermon, running back, Niners, practiced at limited capacity Thursday due to concussion protocol. T. Higgins, a.k.a. Tiggins, did not practice Thursday. Shoulder. That's back-to-back DNPs for him. So me and Josh are both worried there a little bit. Andy Dalton is week to week with a left knee. He is out. Fields is in this week. More on that later. Carson Wentz is leaving himself a chance to play with 2 severed legs. No, I'm just kidding. With 2 sprained ankles. One of them a high ankle sprain. So.
Oh, yeah. So he's not going to play.
Yeah, shouldn't play. Did you get any update on Barkley there?
Is that what I was doing?
Yes. Shiny objects.
Oh, sorry. So it sounds like he's going to play.
Okay. That's all I got for news and injury updates. You got a game for us? You got a segment for us today?
I believe it's time to go back to the cause for concern. Well, because it's week 2, and we probably won't do this every week.
No,
but it's week 2, so there's definitely some names to be in the COC or CFC kind of category there.
Mm-hmm.
First off, Chris, Ryan Tannehill, what is your level of concern for Mr. Ryan Tannehill? He's averaging 14.9 points per game, and so far in the season, it's only been 2 weeks, but still, he's the quarterback 26.
We have 3 options, right? Not concerned at all, mildly concerned, and
whatever level of concern you are.
I'm mildly concerned, or should I say, I'm getting more and more concerned. I'm wondering if we see, I think there's more on this later too, if I remember my notes correctly, that I wonder if we see like a coordinator change somewhere down the line. The offense is a shell of itself. There was a little bit of promise this last week. We'll get in more into that later, but not much.
That was mainly based on Derrick Henry, not...
Yeah. That's what I mean. His offense as a whole, but not Tannehill. In fact, you made a point to his average fantasy points. I think he's literally scored like almost exactly 14 or 15 points both weeks. Like he's not only almost averaging 50, that much. Yeah, exactly. So I am concerned. I'm mildly concerned at this point.
What about your boy Dak?
Not concerned at all. I think game plan was a bit different. I think it's been in 2 close games. So game script has played something to do with
what about
that.
for this week? Against the Philly. Pretty good defense.
I think still a QB1.
Okay, even though he's QB 17 on the year so far.
Yeah, I think he'll be a QB1 this week. Yeah.
Okay. I am a little concerned. What about Felipe Franks? Or how concerned are you about Felipe's play so far this year?
Is that a comic book reference?
No, this is an actual NFL player, Felipe Franks.
Yeah, not concerned at all because I don't know who he is.
I am not concerned either because I didn't know who the hell he was until yesterday. And if you are wondering who he is a backup quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh.
What about Saquon? So far Saquon has faced Denver and Washington, who are giving up the 2nd and 7th fewest fantasy points to the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
How concerned are you on Saquon?
I think we had him maybe last week or in a different segment, and I answered something similarly that I am concerned, and it's kind of a reason I think both of us lowered him come draft time in our ranks to, I don't recall, the 2nd round maybe. So yeah, I'm quite a bit concerned.
I am not. I feel like he's just getting his legs underneath him right now. I think it's a lot of it is them just kind of holding the Saquon back. The Saquon? I think they're holding the Saquon back. They're
The
just really
Saquon.
scared about him coming back from injury and everything. And I think after this week against, I don't remember who they're playing this week. Let me see here. They are playing the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
Really? Huh. I have it like so. Even if Saquon doesn't play well this week, I think he's a definite like buy low guy after this week. On to CH, that would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is RB46 on the season, which is only one spot better than Saquon. He's touched the ball at least 13 times per game and hasn't done much. How concerned are you about CH? He was going in early second round. None, a little, a lot. Oh boy, pull your hair out. Level concern.
Pull my hair out. Cue the meme or whatever with the dog in the burning kitchen.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I have all the worries in the world that this is just it's just maybe it's just he's not the fit that we thought he was for the Chiefs, and I kind of wonder if that's it right there.
I mean, he's supposed to be one of the better receiving backs in the NFL, and he just doesn't get.
But I mean, he's touched the ball 13 times, and he's done nothing with it. It's just I don't know. Man. I think he's too small for what the Chiefs want to do with their running back.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I'm wondering. Let's move on to Jonathan Taylor. He's getting only 50% of the team snaps, and he's averaging a kind of a measly 10.2 points per game.
I'm concerned.
How concerned are you?
I'm quite a bit concerned.
I gotta say, I'm pretty worried. That's the one thing that really, and that's why I pointed it out here, is that he's only getting 50% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Granted, that's an average between the 2 weeks, but it's almost exactly 50%. And the offensive line isn't 100% right now.
Nope.
They're probably going to have a backup quarterback this week, and if not for a couple of weeks, I'm pretty worried about Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
Hopefully they when that offensive line gets better, then they're just going to start feeding Taylor a little bit more. But until then, Antonio Gibson, he is so far the RB28, and he was going as like the RB10 in like PPR.
I'm going to go with no concern because
I think even with Taylor Heineke,
I think it might be a bit of a shot in the arm. I'll just put it that way, in to the offense.
I am worried. I think I haven't not liked what Gibson has done, even with Ryan Fitzpatrick in week 1. And if Heineke doesn't improve, this could be really. I think it's going to be some big problems for Gibson. What about Javonte Williams / Melvin Gordon?
I'm pretty concerned, but I think I was coming into the season. Just because, again, it's 50-50 more or less, and neither guy separated themselves. And I think I heard something a stat along the lines of they pass very, very little to their running backs. So both Gordon and Williams, I'm kind of like, well, what the? But they're still top 36 guys. I feel like they're still in the flex conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little worried, and like you said, they're splitting this workload almost 50. Like they're almost 50-50 on snaps. They're almost 50-50 in workload. Last week, Javonte. I'll get into that more later on. Let's keep that for that. What about AJ Brown / even Julio Jones?
Little concerned. I'm kind of lumping that in with the Tannehill stuff. Offense doesn't look great. I'd like to see some changes in terms of play calling. Not necessarily the coordinator, but like some urgency. I don't know. More play action. They did get back to more play action in week 2, but yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. A little bit.
I am a little concerned, but really not all that much. So Julio has outscored AJ Brown through the first 2 weeks. Not by a lot, but enough. But he has, weirdly. But here's where the Titans, the opponents for the next 3 weeks: the Colts, the Jets, and the Jags. If they don't get right and within the first week or 2 of that, then there are definite problems. And we can revisit this next week if they don't do something against the Colts, who have been really bad against the pass this year so far. Yep. Let's go with a little Calvin Ridley. This is our last one. Calvin Ridley.
I think we'll see some improvement.
11.7 points per game this so far.
I think there's brighter days ahead. No concern.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the Giants up ahead this week, and then the football team, the Jets, a bye, and then the Dolphins. So
He gets to
two
play
or three
Tampa
out of the
twice.
problem is 2 or 3 out of those are going to be either a no matchup or a rough one. So there's some, but
Mhm.
we'll talk about him more in a little bit, I guess. What's your first matchup, Chris?
That's a very good question, Josh, because I had that queued up ready to go right off the bat. No, actually, I kind of did. Colts at Titans. Speaking of the Colts, let's play off some of that here. We've touched on the quarterback situation already. We believe it probably is going to end up being Jacob Eason. Either way, let's cut to the chase. I'm benching whomever plays quarterback. Let's talk about the backs that we need to talk about here. Quentin Nelson, PFF has him ranked with a 63.9. That's 31st. That includes a 57.4 run block rating. He's hurt.
He's not playing at 100%.
Yeah, so he's dealing with his back. The defense and the O-line are not playing particularly well right now. The Colts are 0-2. They're 8th worst in points at 40 points. Hines, we all know, has his role. We alluded to it with the snap count earlier. The Colts have 0 rushing touchdowns at this point. But the Titans are playing pretty bad defense right now. They're 9th worst in total yards. They've given up the 3rd most passing touchdowns with 6 already in 2 weeks. And the 5th most passing yards. Taylor will see his mediocre snap share, about 55% week 1, 45% week 2. Averages out to 50%. And the matchup will keep him in the top 36. So I'm going to give him 2.75 stars. Naheem Hines scored 16.5 versus Tennessee. That might be an average. I believe that's an average. 16.5 points versus Tennessee last year, including 16 targets and 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving, 1 rushing between the 2 games. Taylor was out the second game they played and played sparingly in the first. So
wasn't that in week 17?
Yep, it sure was.
Haha, I remembered.
So I'm actually going to give Hines 3.25 stars. So it's a whole half a star more than Mr. Taylor. We kind of already beat that to death, so we'll move on. Zach Pascal, playing virtually the same percent of snaps as Pittman. That's about 90 to 91%. Pittman did log 97% week 1, so that was higher than the others. But since then, granted it's only 2 weeks, it's kind of evened out there. Pascal is currently the wide receiver 16 in fantasy. I like Pascal to keep his scoring streak going, but don't go chasing waterfalls left eye after this week. Again, it kind of comes down to the matchup. Titans are just ice cold on defense right now in a bad way. Yeah. So let's give Pascal 3 stars and get him in your flex in certain leagues. On to the Titans. No other pass catchers that I want to talk about there with the Colts. On to the Titans. We touched on Ryan Tannehill a little bit already. He's the QB 26, averaging 14.9 fantasy points. Despite the Titans leading in plays ran with 147, they are 13th worst in yards per play with 5.3. And the teams with worse averages than them are bad offenses like Miami, Atlanta, the Jets, the Jags, Green Bay with their complete dud in week 1. So their average is really bad. Titans are bottom 10 with 4 turnovers in 2 games. Todd Dowling, new offensive coordinator, seems to have worked under defensive-minded head coaches his whole career, and he seems a little bit too conservative, in my opinion. The matchup keeps Tannehill's name in the conversation in Superflex, but I'm benching him in redraft. That's going to be 2 stars. Derrick Henry bounced back in a huge way, as he is known to do. The beauty of his bounce back performance isn't the 2 touchdowns or the 182 rushing yards. It's that he caught all 6 of his targets. If he gets that, I mean, he's the running back 1 and is having a historic season. Just like mark it down. If he's getting 5 or 6 targets a game and hauling them in, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that's the outlier. The Colts have given up the 16th most points to fantasy backs through 2 weeks. Henry has a nice week. 4.25 stars.
Okay.
A.J. Brown. Colts give up the 6th most fantasy points to fantasy wide receivers, but middle of the road in terms of passing yards. Brown had 8 and 9 targets respectively the last 2 weeks. I like the offense to keep some momentum going and Tannehill and A.J. Brown to get on the same page. They got back to more play action last week as opposed to week 1. So I'm going to give A.J. Brown 4 stars. Julio, target totals of 6 and 8 the past 2 weeks. Been pretty good. Pretty decent. Just need more converted targets and efficiency from Tannehill, kind of the theme of the conversation here. And the play caller, again, part of the theme of the conversation. So I'm going to give Julio 3 stars to get him in your flex there. And no tight ends to talk about here with the Titans. That is it.
I have one problem with your Derrick Henry rating. And because I'm a Colts fan, I remember what Derrick Henry did in that 1 week against Indy last year. And that was 103 completely scoreless yards. I believe he even had a fumble in there too. So yeah, it wasn't a good outing. And that was the game without DeForest Buckner, or that was the game with DeForest Buckner. And then the game without DeForest Buckner, he went bananas. So I think that, and DeForest Buckner, the last time I checked, was going to play this week. So I think, and granted, the Colts defense is not the same as it was last year. They're obviously struggling a little bit. Yeah. But 4.25 stars, I think you need to, I personally would have them a little bit lower, but it's your matchup and your rating. So I'm just weighing in a little bit.
He's coming to get your Colts. Your 0-2 Colts.
the team's in shambles. It's just injuries and whatever this year. Yeah. Anyways, that was your matchup, right?
Yep.
My first matchup is the Atlanta Falcons against the New York Giants. Start with the quarterback, of course. And that would be Matt Ryan. Surprisingly, the Giants passing defense is 9th worst in averaging and the average yards per game that they're giving up, which is 287.5 of said passing yards per game. It's a good matchup for Ryan, and he has played some decent defenses so far. And it would have to be more of a super flex league for me to recommend anyone starting Matt Ryan. Right. Maybe because there's not anyone really missing and above him in the quarterbacks that I would be like, oh well, if so and so is out injured, Matt Ryan's better than Andy Dalton. So I'm going to give him 2.75 stars as a real solid, super flex start this week. On to Mike Davis. I'd rather not start Mike Davis if I don't have to. He's been splitting work with Cordero Patterson and Keith Smith, whoever that guy is. But the Giants have been giving up 126 rushing yards per game, so there's hope. I just don't think that Mike Davis is really all that talented. He had a couple of good games with the Panthers last year, but other than that, he was really kind of just pedestrian. And he's shown that he's the same with the Falcons. It'd have to be a 14-16 team league for me to recommend starting Mike Davis. Or if you're really missing running backs. You drafted early. You Travis Etienne's and whatever. Mike Davis, I wish you were on my dynasty team. That's how bad I am. At running back, at least. Calvin Ridley, I'm giving him 3 3/4 stars. Ridley got 10 targets last week, and he got you the touchdown to save his fantasy day. Until Matt Ryan really starts playing better, I'm really not all that high on Ridley. Yeah, he's going to have some chances, and it's a okay matchup for him, but I'm really guessing that the Giants are going to put Bradbury on Calvin Ridley, or at least for a good chance of the game. So you're not sitting Calvin Ridley, but just don't get them hopes up. Russell Gage, I'm only mentioning him because he got 7 targets last week. So maybe don't just drop him yet, but it's really close. He's like wide receiver number 100 on the season or something really astronomical like that. But if you can afford the roster spot, maybe just hold on to Gage one more week to see if he turns it around here. Kyle Pitts, you're my natural enemy this season but he's getting 12.5 fantasy points per game. At 12.5 fantasy points per game. The Giants are giving up the 3rd most points to the tight end. This pains me to say it, but I'm giving Pitts a 4-star rating this week. He was on the field for 79% of the snaps last week in week 2. He only got 6 targets, but 79% of the snaps, I don't remember what it was in week 1, but he was at like the low 60s. Like I'm going to say about 63% in week 1. So for that to jump up to 79, obviously the coaches are feeling a little bit more, maybe it's a little more desperation, but still it's enough to put Pitts out there. Let's move on to the Giants side of the ball here, where I'm going to give Daniel Jones 4 stars. You might say, well, did I fall and hit my head? And I didn't, but I wish I would have after this week.
Not at all.
Currently, Daniel Jones is the quarterback 5 in fantasy football.
Yes,
he's averaging 25.42 points per game, and the Falcons' defense is bad top to bottom. They're like the bottom 10 or whatever. This really makes me puke, but I'm giving him 4 stars, man. I can't deny it, man. I really can't.
I think he's in a lot of people's top 12 this week. The only quarterbacks with more rushing yards are Lamar and just blanked.
Whatever it is, man. He's been really good, and he's been decent throwing the ball too. I think this is the week that the Giants unleash the beast with the Saquon. The Falcons are 10th worst against the run, giving up 127.5 rushing yards per game. I want to give Saquon that 5 stars, but just in case they keep holding him back because of injury, he's still bouncing back from that ACL. I'm going to still give him the respectable 4.25 stars. And maybe it's more like 4, but I wrote down 4.25, so I'm going to stick with it. Kenny G, I think this week the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You saw him at the sidelines yelling at Daniel Jones. He claims he was yelling at the offensive coordinator, blah, 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 whatever. We've seen this time and time again in football where the, prima donna wide receiver gets all complainy, and then to appease him, they hyper target him, and he does really well, and everything's all right in the world, at least for another day. So I'm giving him 4 stars. Sterling Shepard, I'm also giving 4 stars. Not riding the fence here. Sterling Shepard has been good so far. Yeah. And considering that he went in, I want to say it's like double-digit rounds, maybe at the highest, like round 9 in drafts. Through 2 weeks, Shepard has at least 9 targets, 7 receptions, and 90 yards in both games.
Nice.
While I think Kenny G is going to have a good week this week, Atlanta's defense is bad enough to sustain 2 fantasy-relevant wide receivers with Kenny G and Sterling Shepard. What's the next matchup, Chris?
I've got the Chargers at Chiefs. Herbert. Dallas's defense actually gave Herbert some fits. He had a bad game. He was sacked twice in each of his first 2 games. 2 picks last week and 3 on the year. He gets Kansas City defense giving up the 8th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, though. But most of that was on the ground to Lamar and company. So kind of a different circumstance here with Herbert, more of a pocket passer. But surely the Chargers will have to score to pass and score to stay in the game. And Herbie torched the Chiefs in both meetings last year, including his first start and a Week 17. He averaged 306 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. I'm going to give him 5 stars. Watch him bounce back all over the place. Yep. A little more love for the Chargers here. The Chiefs have given up the most yards in the league, thanks to their league worst 404 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Consequently, they give up the third most fantasy points. Yeah, consequently, they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back position. Eckler bounced back after 0 targets in Week 1 to have 9 in Week 2. Eckler gets it done on the ground and through the air. 5 stars.
Oh.
Keenan Allen, Chiefs give up the 12th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver position. But, kind of see some of my Herbert analysis there. I see double-digit targets and receptions for Allen here. 4.5 stars. Mike Williams, this game is tied for the highest over-under at 55.5 points, so I feel there's going to be enough to go around here. Williams has played very well and is averaging 11 targets, 86 yards, and 1 touchdown per game. He's the wide receiver 5 on the season. I'm going to give him a little more conservative 3.75 stars there, but definitely in the conversation.
I'm sorry, did you say that Keenan Allen was wide receiver 5 on the season?
No, Mike Williams is wide receiver 5 on the season.
That's what I was wondering. I know he's been really good out of nowhere, but I'm sorry, keep going.
Jared Cook, tight end here. The Chiefs haven't given up a touchdown to a tight end yet, and played well versus Mark Andrews last week. Kind of a creme of the creme. No.
Creme de la creme. Creme of the crop.
There you go. But Cook is still in that tight end 12 to 15 dart throw territory in a high-scoring affair. He could break that no-touchdown streak for Kansas City safeties and linebackers this week. 3.5 stars. Dart throw. Yeah, 12 to 15, like I said. 3.5 stars.
Tight end dart throw.
On to the Chiefs. Mahomes, I mean, what is there to say? No, I feel like we don't give Mahomes much love because, we're always kind of glossing over him. Let's give a little bit of Mahomes love here. Chargers giving up the second fewest fantasy points to the quarterback exhibition, but Mahomes has gone up against what we believe to be good defenses already in Baltimore and Cleveland, and is averaging 340 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and ran one in week 1 versus the Browns. I'm going to give him 5 stars. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Time to panic, question mark. We already touched on that very much. The Chargers have given up a ton of rushing yards, 324. Bad enough for 3rd worst. But they have given up only 354 passing yards in 2 games. Good enough for 4th best. So you'd think the Chiefs would lean on the rush a little. Well, the concern is here, Helaire has not seen significant targets and was not given the goal line carry. That went to Jamal Williams last week. CEH is averaging 3.3 yards per carry. In this high-scoring affair, I think he can still manage a top 24 finish this week. 2.75 stars.
If CH doesn't get you a top 24 performance this week, are you pushing? Are you smashing that panic button?
I mean, in terms of, I think I'm definitely putting him on my bench. I don't think I can cut him yet, but that's just because the way things are selling low and whatnot.
You can't cut him. You can't trade him. He's just going to have to ride the pine.
So yeah. I don't have much on Hill and Kelsey, honestly. I gave all.
I don't think there's much to say. They're great. You started.
Yeah, so I actually gave them both 5 stars. I mean, Kelsey is just getting targets and red zone touchdowns, and Hill is amazing. So 5 stars on both of them. Keep putting them in the top 5 of their position. That is the Chargers at Chiefs.
You are Mr. 5 stars this week, and I am Mr. 3 stars.
Did I do it in the last?
I tried to mix it up. I really did.
Just in that matchup, the second one. Yeah.
Yes, you're just like, you get 5 stars, and you get 5 stars. You're the Oprah Winfrey of 5 stars.
On the fly, I lowered Keenan Allen's to 4.5. It was 5 in my notes.
Oh, it was 5 stars, but then Mike Williams, he got the 5 stars instead.
No, Mike Williams got 3.75. Thank you very much.
No, just joking. Okay, let's move on to the Cincinnati. I almost called them the Browns. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Cincinnati
Joe
Brown
Burrow,
Tigers. Sorry.
Yep, that's not a thing.
Exactly.
Brown, poor Tiger. I'm trying to look this up.
Bengals and who? Bengals and who?
The Bengals at the Steelers.
Okay, cool. Because I have the Browns. I was confused.
No, I got it mixed up, man. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Anyways, onto the matchup here as I stall and double check this thing that I'm pretty sure is wrong and I can't find it. So let's just go on with Joe Burrow. Pittsburgh is allowing 20.7 fantasy points per game, which is good for 13th most. I worry about Joe Burrow being protected against the Steelers' formidable pass rush here. But that 20.7 fantasy points per game really gives me some hope for Burrow this week. I'm only giving him 3.5 stars because I do worry about that line protecting him. On to Joe Mixon here. Would you believe if I told you RBs are only scoring 8.6 fantasy points per game against the Steelers defense? They're only allowing 84.5 rushing yards per game, which surprisingly not the lowest.
No, I'm pretty sure I know who the lowest is.
Who is it?
Carolina?
Right, maybe I don't remember.
Carolina or Tampa. I think it's Carolina.
I think it's. I think this is 3rd lowest. Anyways, Mixon is getting 16.45 fantasy points per game so far. So there's hope here with Mixon. I know Mixon has a talent to surpass some of these obstacles, but I really want people to temper their expectations and not let them high hopes get too high. And we need to maybe resort to some of those low hopes for Mixon. I'm only giving him 3 stars. I told you I'm kind of a negative Nancy this week. It's weird. Jamar Chase, he's got a touchdown in each of his first 2 NFL games. Remember when he couldn't catch the ball and he had all these drops in the preseason? Well, apparently he was just getting him out of the way for this.
Yeah.
In week 1, the Steelers kept Stephon Diggs pretty quiet, but then in week 2, let Henry Ruggs catch 5 balls for 113 yards and 1 touchdown. I'd say Chase has a legit shot at being a startable asset, so 3 stars. And if Tiggins is not going to play, that goes up to I want to say a 3 3/4. And I have Tyler
sure.
Boyd down here for 2.5, but that easily goes up to a 3, if not a 3.25, if Tiggins isn't going to play. And I have written down here, despite a decent week from Boyd against Chicago, I'm putting him into the desperation category. Not if Tiggins doesn't play, though. That's a double negative, folks. I'd much rather start Chase or Tiggins over Boyd, but if Tiggins is obviously not playing, then fire up your Tyler Boyds, Yeah, let's move on to Big Ben here. Big Ben is not playing his greatest football in his career. His line isn't protecting him. He doesn't have the arm strength that he used to, apparently. And to top it all off, I stubbed my toe this morning, Chris. For all those, but for reals, he's only completing 60% of his passes. To illustrate how bad Big Ben has it, his pocket time, which if people remember from our offensive line show way back when, is the time from the ball being snapped to either you throwing the ball, the pocket collapsing, or he hands the ball off, is 1.1 seconds. That's 1,001 right there.
Yeah.
That's all he has. It's no wonder he's playing bad. To ice this terrible cake of awfulness, the Bengals are only allowing 17.1 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Look elsewhere for Big Ben, and if he's on your bench, just drop him. I'm giving him 1 star. It's not a good situation. Najee Harris, he's only getting 2 3/4 stars. Najee caught a touchdown last week. He looks pretty good doing it too. It's nice to see him getting the workload in and everything. But did I mention that they have a really bad offensive line this year? Did I? Yeah, I think I did. Better days ahead might be for Najee Harris, but it might not be this season. It might be more like next. The Bengals are giving up 13.1 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. I would at least look at other options on your roster than Najee Harris. We're getting into week 3, folks. It's time to, it's time to start forgetting about what kind of draft capital you put into players and start looking at the bare facts. There's potential for Harris here, but I don't think there's a lot. Deontay Johnson, did you say that he's probably not going to start? It looks like he's trending out.
It does look
I think
I said.
I think he's looking at trending out, and I had 3 3/4 stars on him, mainly because he's going to get targets and
DNP
all
Thursday,
that jibber jabber.
That's what I got.
Yeah. So I had Chase Claypool and Juju at both 2 stars, but man, I'm gonna bump Claypool up to like 3 3/4 stars that Deontay Johnson had, and Juju still gets just a boring like 3 stars, I guess. He has 5 and 7 targets in the first 2 weeks, but he hasn't done much with them at all. His average distance of target is 4.4 yards. That's pretty low.
Hand the ball to him a bit here and there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that at this point, with Big Ben being the quarterback that he is now, kind of a shell of himself, I'm pretty sure that Juju's floor and ceiling are synonymous with each other, man. It's just
right.
Unless he gets you a touchdown, which he is statistically due for one very soon. But are you going to really hang on hang your hopes on that this week? I mean, if Deontay Johnson doesn't play, yeah, maybe, but otherwise, probably stay away. That was that matchup. I'm not going to talk about what Heath Miller or whoever is their tight end now.
Oh,
it's
right.
Eric Ebron, but still.
This is worth a mention. Breaking news: CMC is ruled out immediately with a hamstring, and he's been in the blue tent for some time now. So,
dude, are you serious?
Yep, dead serious.
For anyone tuning into this episode, we are recording while the Thursday Night Football game is going on, and so now Josh wants to go punch someone.
I'll cut to the
and
solo
Chris
screen.
Is sitting over there, one state over, relishing in the fact that he's one state over.
There you go. I'll cut to the solo scene real quick with just me while you go bang your head into a wall. No. Okay. So on that fun note, Bears at Browns. We've got Dustin. We've got Justin Fields starting, of course. Andy Dalton is out. The Browns give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, believe it or not. But a lot of that is from playing Mahomes and the Chiefs. But also, they gave up 21 points to the hapless Texans. Fields probably struggles a little, but gets enough done on the ground to be a borderline top 12, just outside the top 12 type of guy. So I'm going to give him 3 stars. David Montgomery is the running back 11 on the season. He's averaging only 2.5 targets a game. Not very impressive in my book. Browns are the 7th best in fantasy points to running backs. That's the 7th best, folks. I imagine the Browns will look to take Montgomery and the running game out of the equation and force Fields to beat them. Still, Monty gets his carries and puts up a mediocre day, as he is wont to do. 3 stars for Mr. Monty. Allen Robinson. I wanted lower expectations with Fields' debut, but I'm excited to see what these two can accomplish. May I remind you, Fields boasts a 68.4 completion percent from college, and I held him as my quarterback 2 in draft time and the most accurate quarterback in the draft. I still believe in the Browns defense overall, and I expect them to make things difficult for Robinson and Fields. So I'm going to give Robinson a conservative wide receiver 2, like 3.25 stars.
You mean wide receiver like 40 on the season? He hasn't been very good.
Right. Yeah, I get it, but I'm being cautiously optimistic with Fields being inserted into the lineup.
What about Cole Comet?
Let me get there. Darnell Mooney, again, I want the whole offense to break out big time in this game, but I think the Browns defense will have something to say about that. Mooney's targets have been solid with 7 and 8, respectively, the past 2 weeks. The Browns are 16th in fantasy points given up to wide receivers. Browns give up the 10th most passing yards, but again, Mahomes. I'm worried Mooney's scoreless streak continues with a rookie quarterback debut versus a good defense, so I'm going to give him 2 stars. Cole Komet, despite clearly being, quote, the guy at tight end, 73% snaps in over 2 weeks, and having a decent week 1 with 7 targets. He had only 1 target in week 2, and I have to look elsewhere for tight end help. 1.5 stars.
I hate you.
Hey, I didn't bench him. I kind of did that on purpose, actually. I was like, I'll just give him like a measly 1.5 just to turn the knife a little. On to the Browns. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has no guarantee for 30 passing attempts or 2 touchdowns week in and week out. Now, he did hurt his non-throwing shoulder, but he also came back in. Still, I just see more of the same pretty good real-life quarterback and not so good fantasy quarterback with Baker Mayfield this year. Yeah. There's better options out there. Chicago is 19th in points given up to quarterbacks for whatever that's worth. And we did mention Odell Beckham Jr. is back, but I think going to be in a kind of limited snap count capacity his first week back. Nick Chubb, Bears are 5th best, giving up only 143 yards and 1 rushing touchdown so far in 2 weeks. So it should be a matchup in the trenches of one, if not the best rushing attack versus a top run unit. That doesn't make sense. Versus a top run defense unit? Yeah, something like that. But Chubb will play well, albeit with I suppose that's supposed to say tempered expectations. Chicago gave up 16 for 70 and 1 touchdown to Henderson and the Rams in week 1. And they gave up 20 carries for 69 yards and nice. And zero touchdowns week 2 at Cincinnati. Just versus Cincinnati. Chubb is better than both those guys, and Cleveland is not backing down. They run the ball. 4 stars for Nick Chubb this week. Kareem Hunt. Hunt was good in week 1, scored on the ground and caught 3 targets. No score in week 2, but did have 13 carries. He's exactly what we thought he would be. Flex conversation every week. Top 30 kind of guy. I'm going to give him 3 stars this week. Jarvis Landry is out. We mentioned that at the top of the show. Odell Beckham Jr. is in. I know Josh, for one, is hoping to see some value from the formerly dominant wide receiver. Given how I expect Cleveland to attack, I would wait and see with ODB if you can afford to. But if you need a guy, you could do worse. 2.5 stars. Then I've just got a little bit here on Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I did not put his first name. Forgive me. Anthony Schwartz. His first name is Anthony. Like what I saw him in week 1. Then he was responsible for Baker hurting his shoulder. He didn't finish a route, which caused Baker to throw a pick, which caused Baker to tackle to save a pick 6. It almost cost him the game. So he was relegated to like nothing in week 2, Schwartz that is. And of course now with Odell Beckham Jr. out. But I did like what I saw. And with Jarvis out, I don't know about Peoples-Jones. I don't have a lot on him, but keep hoping.
There isn't a lot to say.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, just deeper leagues, I kind of have my eye on Anthony Schwartz there. He's a speed guy. Looked good in Odell Beckham Jr.'s absence in week 1, but not so much in week 2 because he cost Cost him a hurt quarterback. That's all I've got on Browns and the Bears.
Two things. One, I don't remember what the first thing is, so we'll move on to the second thing. I feel like the Browns, if they could have rolled out Odell Beckham in week 1 and 2 and just use him in limited usage, I think that they are rolling him out this week with just zero limitations, and unless he says like he feels like he can't do 100%. Otherwise, why hold him back for week 3? You know, that's my personal opinion. But I still don't remember what that first thing was. So let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens at the Detroit Lions. I have no idea what it was. None. Let's start with Lamar Jackson here. I'm giving him 4.25 stars. This should probably be higher. And honestly, I'm not sure why I am giving Lamar Jackson 4.25 stars. Screw it. He's the wide receiver or the quarterback 4, and he's averaging 26.13 points per game. So 5 stars for Mr. Lamar Jackson.
All right. You get 5 stars.
Tyson Williams, I'm giving him 3.75 stars. He is leading the team's backfield as part of snap percentages. He's in on only half of the team snaps. But Detroit is giving up the most points per game, which is 32.9 to opposing running backs. So even half of that, that's still a pretty decent day. A lot of that has to do with Aaron Jones. He did get the 4 touchdowns on Monday Night Football, if y'all haven't heard.
Yeah.
But I really think that Tyson Williams has a legit shot at being fantasy relevant. I don't really think that. Boy, I'm spacing on his name at the moment. Came from Latavius Murray. Really is that much of a factor in this. If Tyson Williams is getting half, he's getting maybe a third, and then whoever the third guy is getting something. But let's move on to Marquis Brown. Hey, Chris, got a question for you.
Yep.
Did you know that Marquis Brown is a wide receiver 6 on the season so far?
I didn't know exactly that he was 6, but I know he's been doing pretty well.
You know what you get when you are the wide receiver 6, even through the first 2 weeks? You get to be named, and that name is Hollywood Brown. So I am going back to calling him Hollywood until he proves anything else. Hollywood is, man, he's played the Raiders in there, but 18.4 fantasy points per game so far against the Lions. Hollywood, man, Hollywood. On to Mark Andrews. I'm not really sure what to make of Mark Andrews so far. He's been pretty disappointing so far. He does have 5 targets in each game, but I was really kind of expecting more out of Mark Andrews. I guess. So in 2020, he was getting 6.28 fantasy or targets per game, in which he was eventually the tight end 8 and everything. So you're starting Andrews. We shouldn't think twice about it. I don't know. I'm wondering if Lamar Jackson's just looking down the field a little bit more in his third year, playing quarterback in the NFL. So I'm gonna give Andrews 3.5 stars. Maybe slightly above that tight end dart throw territory.
Sure.
He's destined for a good game, and why not against the Lions? They're terrible.
They are.
Jared Goff, 1 star. He doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the elite quarterbacking talent to get to elevate the rest of the team, to being all that great. So, like you said in the injury segment, Tyrell Williams, he's out for the next 3 games with a concussion. There's a bunch of other scrubs in there and a rookie. We both like Amon-Ra St. Brown, but hasn't really done much so far. So 1 star for Mr. Goff. Jamal Williams. It was a bad night against the Packers for these two. That would be him and DeAndre Swift. I was really excited for Jamal Williams after the week 1 performance. Thought maybe, maybe we were right all along and everything. But he just didn't get the usage like Swift did against the Packers, even during garbage time. So I'm going to bump Williams down to 2 stars here. On to DeAndre Swift, I'm giving him 3.5 stars. Other than Josh Jacobs scoring a couple of touchdowns in week 1 against the Ravens run defense, they really haven't they didn't really allow that much production last week. So and as I mentioned with Jamal Williams, the Swift is getting the lion's share of the usage here in this backfield. And that was not a pun intended, but It is,
Definitely
and
intended.
and this is not a favorable matchup. So 3.5 stars for DeAndre Swift. I wish I could go higher, but he's also a little banged up too. So TJ Hawkinson, I'm giving 4.25 stars so far this season. The Ravens D has gone up against Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, and they have given up 18.3 fantasy points to on average between the two of them. While go Hawks, may not be on their level as far as talent, maybe, well, at least not yet. This is only his third season, but he's still pretty darn good. So I'm going to give him that 4.25 stars. He's been Goff's primary target through the first 2 weeks, as he should be for this team that is just lacking pass catchers. 4.25 stars for TJ Hawkinson. Go Hawks.
Nice.
What you got next there, big boy?
Do you know why Marquise's nickname is Hollywood?
I don't remember.
It doesn't have anything to do with California. He is from Hollywood, Florida.
Oh, okay. That I do know that's a real place.
I hope so. Otherwise, the internet is lying to me, Josh.
Okay. Is that what you've been doing this entire time when I've been talking?
Oh, yes. I have his entire personal history. No, I'm just kidding. I've been doing other things.
I know his credit card numbers. I know what his mother's maiden name was. I know who his second grade teacher's maiden name was as well. So if you want that, you can contact us at amazingffb@gmail.com. We have this information currently up for auction.
Yep. I was also checking Twitter a little bit for updates. Anyway, Saints at Pats.
Oh, wait. Before you start, do you so you called Justin Fields Dustin Fields?
Once,
do you know who Dustin Fields is? Dustin Fields is the president and CEO of Fields Senior Living in the greater Seattle area. In his LinkedIn account, he has a quote from Second Theologians, chapter 3, verse 13. I'm not going to read it because I don't care. I'm sorry. Just wanted to tell you who Dustin Fields was.
Nice. Free plug for Dustin Fields. All right. Saints at Patriots. Jameis Winston, on one hand, don't let Jameis's 5 touchdowns from week 1 fool you. The Saints are running a ton and throwing very little. Dead last with 231 passing yards on 43 attempts, which is also last. On the other hand, this Carolina D is for real. That would be who they played last week in week 2. But nonetheless, the Saints are a run-heavy team, and the Pats are a good defense, so I don't see a great game from Jameis coming. 2 stars. Kamara, again, that Carolina defense gave the Saints fits last week, and Kamara had 2 polar opposite weeks to begin his season. Went from 20 carries week 1 to 8 carries for 5 yards in week 2. He still managed 6 targets in week 2, so whatever. New England is the 6th best in passing yards given up with 369.
Nice.
They are the 10th best versus fantasy backs. But the offense runs through Kamara, and New England isn't on Carolina's level on D at this point. And you're starting Kamara, let's be honest. So let's call for a little bit of a bounce back game here with 4 stars. Marquez Callaway, quite frankly, there's just too little volume for the receivers and tight ends. I'm going to bench Callaway, and good luck figuring out the tight ends too. So I guess if you want to throw a dart at a top 15 to 18 kind of tight end guy, yeah, sure, go for Troutman because he's getting the snaps and whatnot, but it's just bleak.
If you're throwing a dart and hoping for tight end 15 to 18, then
it's a deep.
You need to set your sights higher there, buddy.
Yeah, well, maybe you're in a deep league. I don't know. So more or less benching them also. That's it for the Saints. On to the Patriots. I literally didn't put anything on Mac Jones. Just kind of very conservative approach by the Patriots. He's bench worthy in most standard leagues. Maybe he's a low end 2 at best in Superflex, and probably not even that.
I agree.
Damian Harris. New Orleans is
third
best. Damon Harris for the Patriots, right?
Harris,
Yeah.
Damon Harris.
No, I just misspoke. I knew who I was trying to say. New Orleans is third best in rushing yards, giving up only 132 rushing yards through 2 weeks.
Oh.
Harris came back last week with 16 carries, scored on the ground, and didn't fumble. The coaches showed confidence in him, and so far, so good. The Patriots will continue to establish run and protect their rookie quarterback, so Harris is still in the flex conversation in my eyes. 3.5 stars for Damian Harris. James White. James White is a thing again. Always has been, I guess. He's getting 6 to 7 targets per game and 45 to 50 receiving yards per game, which last time I checked is about 10 points in a full PPR. He also scored a rushing touchdown last week. That means he's a top 36 guy almost every week until further notice. Currently, he's the RB17. 3 stars for James White. Jacoby Myers and the receiving core. It says something when you have to worry about your halfback leading the team in targets. I'll say it again. I think Mac is capable of more. I just think Belichick is playing it very conservative this year until something changes. So I'm just going to bench all the passing options here. I did look at the tight ends, and it was like, it's just
yawn.
It's not. Yeah, there's nothing there. There's not enough volume, and that
when you have 2, you have none.
Exactly, and that is your Saints at Patriots.
Okay.
Back to you, Josh.
Back to me. I'm trying to figure. I lost my place. Sorry, I was scrolling around. My next matchup is the Arizona Cardinals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is just not fair. It really isn't. Kyler Murray, 3 weeks in a row. Next week, I'm giving you the Cardinals.
5 stars.
I will break my rules. I am giving you the Cardinals next week because I am giving them 5 stars for 3 weeks in a row. Through the first 2 weeks, the Jags are giving up 22.4 points per game, which is the 8th worst. I have a feeling that it would probably be more points to the quarterback position, but they just get like the opposing teams get up so quickly that they're just like, well, we don't have to throw the ball anymore. Yeah. So 3 weeks in a row for Mr. Murray. I guess I'm a Kyler Murray fan. Chase Edmonds, I'm giving you 4 stars in week 1. Edmonds and Connor split the workload with a fairly even workload split as I double talk there. Not in week 2, though. Edmonds on the field for almost 2/3 of the team snaps, while Connor got 44.6% of the team snaps. Yes, I know those overlap. But this is a plus matchup for both of them. Well, Jacksonville is giving up allowing 23.4 fantasy points per game to the running back position. So 4 stars for Chase Edmonds, 2 3/4 stars for James Conner. I still think that there's a chance for Conner to have a fantasy relevant day. Maybe a consideration for your flex position, for your flex spot, but it's more of a desperation kind of flex start, if anything, DeAndre Hopkins, I'm giving him 4 1/4 stars. He's a little banged up at the moment. I don't think we mentioned that in the injury segment. I think it's more like veterans rest than anything else. He had a bit of a down week versus the Vikings. He did catch all 4 of his targets for 54 yards and a touchdown. I'm looking for Nuke to have a bounce back week versus this bad Vikings D or Jags D. Rondale Moore, I'm giving him 1 star, complete bench grade. I'm only bringing him up because you were really in on Rondale in preseason and everything, and we love guys with the last name of Moore. We love our Michael Moores, we love our Rondale Moores, our DJ Moores, our Julianne Moores, our Elijah Moores, and of course Mandy Moore. But for reals, Rondale had himself a good game against the Vikings last week. He went 7 for 8, 114 yards and a touchdown. He's a bench stash for now. Maybe moving forward, he can be more of a starter for you, but still don't start him. I would have thought for sure I'd have gotten you with that Mandy Moore, but nope, nothing.
I was still astonished by the 1 star rating, but go ahead.
By Rondale Moore? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pick him up. Yeah, for sure. I'm not starting him this week. Would you start him this week? No.
I probably don't need to. So it's probably a fair statement. Yeah.
Exactly. On to the Jacksonville. There's really not a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to try and be very quick here.
No.
So on to the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Like I said, I really don't have a lot to talk about here. Trevor Lawrence hits 1 star. Until this rookie starts playing a lot better, I suggest you let him ride the waiver wire. Here's how bad Lawrence's play was last week. 14 for 14 completed passes out of 33 attempts, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. That is 3.6 yards per completion. Yowzers. That's bad. It's not exactly his fault. Lawrence's pocket time was only 2.5 seconds. That's really not good. I figured this offensive line was going to be bad this season, and they haven't proved me wrong. And until they start playing better, it's going to be hard to recommend Trevor Lawrence or even James Robinson, who I'm giving him 2 stars. Carlos Hyde wasn't nearly the factor that he was in week 1. Yada, yada. Don't start James Robinson. DJ Chark. This is pure, unadulterated desperation rating. Chark was a target leader in week 1. In week 2, it was Marvin Jones. If you need a Hail Mary going into this week, I guess it's Chark. But I'm kind of fading away from this offense completely, like them and the Jets, and more on the Jets here in a minute.
Yep.
I'm staying away. I'm just staying away. You can't drop James Robinson. You probably can't trade him unless you find someone who just thinks that it's a bad first couple of weeks. You just have to hang on to him. You have to let him chew that bench spot, unfortunately. I'm sorry, folks. It's true. What's your next matchup?
I've got the Washington football team at the Buffalo Bills. Taylor Heinicke. I was worried Washington would take a much too conservative approach with Heinicke at the helm. Last week showed us otherwise. Heinicke threw 46 times for 336 yards and 2 touchdowns.
What? Really?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But this Buffalo defense is shaping up to be elite at this point. Buffalo is 2nd in points allowed and 2nd in passing yards allowed, 7th in rushing yards allowed. I'm going to bench Heinicke because just kind of don't need to go there right now. But yeah, keep an eye out, see if he can keep these fantasy assets afloat, or maybe even, like I think mentioned earlier, maybe a shot in the arm. Antonio Gibson, Buffalo's 7th best in rushing yards allowed and touchdowns allowed. We'll go with that. There's missing digit.
Are you asking me a question?
No, I think there's a missing digit. It looks like a 9. I don't know. It's a hyphen or whatever.
There's a 9er in there too?
Buffalo is 7th best in rushing yards allowed. I think Washington is forced to eventually abandon the run and let Heinicke bring them back. And Gibson doesn't get enough of the pass work at this point to warrant a higher rating.
For some reason.
Say like an RB1 rating. So I'm going to give him a 3.5 stars. McKissick, the guy that we just kind of alluded to there. Hard to rely on McKissick when he showed you his floor in week 1 with 1 carry and 1 target. Only reason he is RB30 is he scored on the ground and ripped off an 83-yard reception last week. But good luck of those happening again in the same game. Against this Buffalo D, I am benching McKissick. McLaren, Scary Terry, actually flourished in Heinicke's first start with catching 11 out of 14 targets for 107 yards and 1 touchdown. Maybe the offense has figured something out, or they were being held back by Fitz magic. I don't know. Buffalo is 2nd in passing yards allowed. Only 1 passing touchdown allowed on the season so far by Buffalo. I'm going to give McLaren a optimistic 3.75 stars, though. Logan Thomas, it was encouraging to see better target totals from Thomas. 3 in week 1 versus 7 in week 2, but Buffalo gives up the 10th fewest points to tight ends. And again, this defense is pretty darn good. I'm going to bench Logan Thomas. The Bills. Josh Allen tossed 2 scores in week 2, only 1 in week 1, and had a similar fantasy outcome, about 17 fantasy points. He's a QB 18 on the year, 56% completion rate, only averaging 1.5 touchdowns per game. Pittsburgh is supposed to be a good defense, and Miami is sneaky good versus the pass. Xavier Howard is 3rd in PFF with an 86.5 rating. 220 passing yards per game allowed by Miami. It's pretty good. But I am a little worried and also think Buffalo might want Allen to run more in this game since Danny Dimes just ran all over the Washington football team, and we know Allen can do it too. And then from that, we see more pedestrian passing numbers from Josh Allen versus this fierce Washington pass rush. They've got 6 sacks and 14 hurries on the year already. Montez Sweat, one of their defensive ends, according to PFF. I'm sorry, he's 8th according to PFF with an 86.5 rating. I'm going to give 3 stars, just outside the top 12 for me for Josh Allen. Devin Singletary. It would appear we were dead wrong about Moss and Singletary. Singletary was clearly, that would be 66% of the snaps. That's a lot of S's. That led the backfield within Moss's return. And remember, Moss was a healthy scratch, so there wasn't like we need to ramp him up type of stuff. Singletary is the RB 16 on the year. He's averaging 6.4 yards per carry. But Washington is sixth best versus fantasy backs. So I'm going to give Singletary a cautious 2.75 stars there. Got to keep him in the conversation for now. A little worried, but looks okay now. Where were we? Bench, Moss, Stephon Diggs. He only caught 4 of 8 targets in week 2, but saved his fantasy day with a score. He's only the wide receiver 29 in the year. Diggs has shown before that he can disappear with subpar quarterback play in Minnesota. I expect brighter days ahead, but not so much this week. I could see the coordinator get fired maybe after this week. I am lowering expectations because of the reasons mentioned earlier with Josh Allen. 3.5 stars for Diggs. Emmanuel Sanders is boasting an 85% snap rate. He's a nice pickup, but only a desperation flex this week. 2.5 stars. Nothing worth mentioning with the other pass catchers for the Buffalo Bills. And that is your Washington football team at Buffalo Bills.
On to the Seattle Seahawks at the Minnesota Vikings. Wow, I had a weird brain fart there for a second. Russell Wilson, 5 stars. Look for Russ to be serving up some tender Chilean sea bass here in this game. He is rolling so far this year. Tyler Lockett, while he has been outplaying DK, or at least outscoring DK Metcalf, I'm still giving him 3 3/4 stars. I'm starting Lockett in my Dynasty League out of necessity. In regular redraft leagues, this is a good matchup. And can you really sit Lockett after 2 amazing weeks?
Did you sit him the first 2 weeks?
What's that?
Did you sit him the first 2 weeks?
I sit him the first week.
Gotcha. That's not
no, I didn't because it was a necessity.
Okay.
I want to say that you can, but I want to say you can sit Lockett, but with 25.9 fantasy points per game so far, it's really hard to ignore. You're starting Lockett. I'm really nervous about him disappearing. Like it's going to happen, and everyone's going to be like, "What happened?" And be like, "I've been calling for this all along." If it doesn't, wow, he's going to be.
Yeah, but how long do you get to hold that?
Could have been.
How long do you get to hold that "I told you so" card?
One more week. One more week.
Son of a.
What?
Continue.
I think that like fair. After 3 weeks, I'm going to be like, fine, I was wrong.
If you were going to say like 5 weeks, I was going to call BS.
No. One more week.
We're good.
Legit one more week, and I'll be like, all right, well, we need to start thinking differently about Tyler Lockett, or at least I do. DK Metcalf, I'm giving him 4.5 stars. He was targeted 11 times, along with Tyler Lockett was also targeted 11 times last week against the Titans. I don't see how DK can be held to 3 straight weeks of just being kind of pedestrian. I'm calling for the big game here for DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett still could have a decent game as well. You know, like it's possible. Chris Carson, I mean, just to circle back, like they both got targeted 11 times. It's possible they could both have like really good weeks this week. Chris Carson, I'm going to give him 4 stars through the first 2 weeks. He is the RB14, and scoring 13.2 points, which is exactly on track for Chris Carson's goal in the season. RB14. He is a higher end RB2 on your fantasy roster, but for some reason, I love the mediocrity of Chris Carson. He's just so steady, like he's just there, like anchoring down the running back position for you as long as he's healthy. He doesn't do anything really all that flashy. He just goes out there and does a job. He doesn't do a good job. He doesn't do a bad job. He's just doing a job.
He does a pretty good job.
He just does a job. All right, man. He's doing a job. All right. He's doing a job. Gerald Everett, I'm giving him 2.75 stars here. He's in the tight end dart throw territory. He's gotten some targets over the past couple of weeks. It's just he just hasn't done much with them, other than that nice touchdown.
One touchdown, week 1, yeah.
Yeah, week 1. On to Kirk Cousins, I'm giving him 4 stars. Surprisingly, the Seattle defense is only giving up 16.5 fantasy points to the quarterback.
Oh.
I think a lot of that is due to Carson Wentz having a shaky first game with the Colts. I'm sticking with Cousins here. Potentially, I have it potentially cook out for the game, but it sounds like he's going to play. If he does play, though, I'm giving him 4.5 stars. The Packers are giving up the second most fantasy points to RBs, which is pretty much on track for what they were doing at the end of last year as well. They're also giving up the second most yards at 147.5 yards per game. I have Alexander Madison in here for absolutely no reason if Dalvin Cook's going to play. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, I'm giving them both 4 stars. Thielen is showing us that he's still the man in Minneapolis. He's in on 96.5 of the team's snaps. He actually got 2 less targets than Justin Jefferson last week, but yet he has. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. On the season, he has 2 less targets than Justin Jefferson, but yet he has 13.1 more fantasy points. So I'm giving him. I'm kind of riding the fence there, like just saying that Justin Jefferson has a bounce back game here, but maybe he doesn't, and it's just the Adam Thielen show for now. Yeah. What do you think about that, real quick? Just real quick.
I think it happens when you have 2 good, if not great, wideouts. I understand Thielen's on the downside of his career. I think things even
is he though?
Out.
I mean, he's the wide receiver.
Well, I think I don't know this for a fact,
but
I think if you look at his kind of numbers in terms of targets and yards, that's gone down. But he gets his looks in the red zone like no other in the league. I say like no other, like tops in the league. Like he is really good in the red zone. Jefferson can also do the red zone. I think those things kind of work themselves out statistically as the season wears on. Yeah. So Jefferson is still great.
What's your next matchup, man? I got like 2.
I am enjoying those Thielen point touchdowns so very much so in the Dynasty League. Old man keeps on producing for me. My next matchup is Dolphins at Raiders. Let's get this one over with. No, Raiders are actually playing really well, and they're 2-0. Jacoby Brissett. Yep, I said it 3 times, folks. Raiders give up the 11th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Exactly middle of the road in both passing yards and rushing yards, that being 16th in the league. Dolphins are the 3rd worst in the league with 330 passing yards. I'm going to bench Jacoby Brissett. Let's move on to the running backs. Gaskin, Dolphins are 5th worst in rushing attempts with 43 rushing attempts on the year. They're 6th worst in rushing yards with 145. I didn't give him a star rating. I'm going to give him a measly
3.5.
Yeah, no, not even that. I'm going to give him 2.5. I can barely keep him in the top
47.5.
What? What was the
question? I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there.
Okay, you really threw
and
me
then
off
saying
with that.
half.
I thought that was like the over/under of the game. I'm going to give him 2.5 stars to barely keep him in the top 36 conversation. Flex worthy, maybe. Will Fuller, no need to risk it in this bad offense. I'm going to bench him until he shows me something. And I guess he's healthy because it's off a suspension, but he was out last week too. So, yeah. Yeah, just more bench love, honestly, for the rest of them. Davonte Parker, obviously, with Fuller coming back.
Bench him then.
Waddle, a little bit of upside with a deep threat there, but not trying it. And Gesicki's been downright awful. He actually saw 6 targets last week, but only caught 3 of them. I am benching Gesicki till further notice. On to the Raiders. Derek Carr. Carr's on fire, and for one, I'm glad to see it. While I wasn't drafting him high, I contended that he's much better than people give him credit for. He's 9th in PFF rankings with an 81. Leads the league with 871 passing yards. He's the QB9 in fantasy. The Dolphins are okay versus the pass. Pardon me. And they give up the 12th fewest passing yards, but pretty awful versus the run. 5th most rushing yards with 268 given up. But Carr is throwing a ton. Leads the league in... What? Leads league in rushing attempts tied.
He leads the league in what?
That doesn't make any sense. We're going to go over that point. But only averaging 67 rushing yards per game. That would be the 3rd worst. So the Raiders don't run well and could be without Jacobs again. Didn't we update that at the beginning of the show? Or is it still up in the air?
We did. And what would be your take on this whole Peyton Barber nonsense about him being the starting running back, according to John Gruden?
Oh,
a bunch of bull.
The Denver guy they brought over?
Kenyon Drake.
Oh, Drake. Duh, sorry. Wrong guy. So the Raiders don't run the ball well and could be without Jacobs again. Kenyon Drake would be the guy up. Yet the Dolphins are bad versus the run. I think the Raiders have a get-right game on the ground, but still run the offense through Carr's hot hand, and he has another nice QB 1 week. 4 stars. We already touched on Jacobs and Drake. If Jacobs is out, I'll give Drake, considering the matchup, I think you'd probably give him a solid 3.25 stars. A little bit of receivers talk here. Bryan Edwards leads with 70% snap share, but not much to show there for it. Ruggs is averaging 6 targets per game. Only 66% of snaps through 2 weeks. Not horrible, but not the team leader either. He scored in week 2, so he's the wide receiver 27 for whatever that's worth. Like, if it weren't for that score in week 2, it'd be buried. Hunter Renfrow last with about 59% of snaps. He's just spreading the ball all over the place. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 targets per game for Renfrow. He's just spreading the ball over the place. I'm not interested in these passing options when Darren Waller is on the team. Speaking of the devil, 5 stars. He's not a devil. I'm just saying I was talking about, you know what I mean.
You mean the guy that accidentally dropped this week?
Yes, we didn't even mention that at the beginning. That was nuts. Josh Fatfinger to important player.
It wasn't a fat finger. Stop calling it a fat finger. That means that I have like fat fingers. I'm just because I'm fat doesn't mean I have fat finger. I could have long, slender pianist fingers. I don't, but that's besides my fat finger point.
I think you can ask Mr. Darren Waller how fat your darn fingers are, sir.
Are you done with the matchup?
I am done with the matchup. And guess what? I only have 1 left, which means you only have 1 left. No? Yeah.
That means I have 2.
Right.
And I don't like you anymore. Let's breeze through this Jets at Denver thing. This is bad. Zach Wilson, I'm giving him -3 stars. He's been awful. How awful? Okay, and before I go into all this stuff I have written down, he's been bad, but there are guys that are like according to PFF, Ben Roethlisberger's worst. Trevor Lawrence has been worse. There was someone else here that I'm not going to bother looking up here real quick. He hasn't, according to PFF, he hasn't been the worst, but he hasn't completed more than 58% of his passes. He's been sacked 10 times through 2 games. He hasn't topped 260 yards in any game, and he's also thrown 5 interceptions.
How about Aaron Rodgers is worse?
To top it all off, the Broncos are allowing the league's 5th best 184 passing yards per game. I'm not even going to. I'm going to get out my 50-foot pole to not touch Zach Wilson. Michael Carter, he was a nice speculative pickup this week, but I don't know how nice. Hopefully, he didn't spend
got a couple more carries,
fat bucks on him.
Yeah, I think I got him for free.
Yeah, that's probably what he's worth. Let's move on to I'm not touching anyone on this Jets team, at least for this week. We'll look at next week when next week rolls around. Teddy B, statistically, the Jets D is only allowing 214.5 passing yards per game, which I thought was pretty surprising. But I don't think that's mainly based on their defense. I think that's more based on the opposing teams getting the ball in such good field position due to a Zach Wilson turnover. Teams are getting up so big, so quick, and that they aren't even bother throwing after so long. Like I'm not really even half joking on this one. When you're turning the ball over that much.
Tackle,
Zach Wilson also has a fumble too in there. I didn't put that down, but I remember seeing that.
He's getting killed back there.
Yeah, man. You can use all these points for Teddy B to say that you can all these points for Teddy this week, and you're probably right. But
it's still just
to say that you shouldn't start him this week. But he is quarterback 12 in this season, and he is averaging over 20 points per game. So I'm giving Teddy 3.5 stars, but I'm not really sure that 2-touchdown streak that he has going on continues here. I think it might be more like 1. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, we kind of touched him on him in a little bit on the top there in the cause for concern segment. My only problem with these guys was they're exactly split down the middle workload. But I'm also not riding the fence here. I am definitely not riding the fence on both of them getting 3 stars. They're both getting 3 stars because their workload is just so similar. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
While Melvin Gordon, like in week 1, Melvin Gordon got the long touchdown and everything, and he was the week 1 hero. Week 2, Javonte Williams actually did more with his time on the field. So, I mean, it's just, you're starting one of them if you have to, and you're kind of hoping just for a touchdown in there. Other than that, 3 stars, flex at best. Cortland Sutton last week. Cortland Sutton was hands down Teddy's go-to man. He was targeted 12 times. That's double the number 2 guy who was Noah Fant. Sutton will go up against cornerbacks Michael Carter II. That's right. The Jets have 2 Michael Carters, if you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
And also cornerback Braden Eccles. Both these guys are not good. So, and Teddy's passing volume might be up a little bit. Might be down a little bit this week. So I'm going to go a little lower with Sutton. I'm going to give him 3 3/4 stars, mainly just due to there might not have to throw the ball that much. And you can add them. Maybe you should give the running backs a higher grade. Well, how about you make your own show and give your own ratings? How about that, everyone? Tim Patrick, a nice speculative ad, but I'm going to keep him on the bench this week, mainly due to I'm seriously really expecting Teddy to throw the ball like maybe 20, 25 times this week, So I'm going to give Tim Patrick the 2 2.25 stars, a desperation flex play, but that's really about it. And super desperate. Noah Fant, 3 3/4 stars. Go Hawks. He had a down week in week 1, but a decent week in week 2. And, I would really like to see Fant would elevate to see his targets get elevated and maybe his yardage a little bit more before I give him a better rating. He's still a really solid tight end start because, there's always that upside. And he's better than a tight end dart throw, but that's kind of what he is. I mean, if you're not elite, then you're a tight end dart throw, but some are better than that. And Noah Fant is one of them. He's in that gray area in between. Last matchup, Chris.
I have probably the game of the week. Buccaneers at Rams.
What? That's not the game of the week.
No? Okay.
No.
What's the game
I
of the
think
week?
it's that Chargers-Chiefs game.
Oh, that one too. But this one is like on Sunday night. Sunday night games are notoriously awesome.
Isn't the Green Bay Packers at the 49ers on Sunday night?
This might be the Monday night game. No, the Monday night game is Dallas.
The Monday night game is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys.
Anyway, this is going to be a great game, Josh. Brady.
This is Chris quitting the show and Josh doing the rest of it all by himself.
He's like, so Bucks at Rams? I don't know. The GOAT is playing very well and is in command of this offense. He is the QB2 on the season and leads the league with 9 touchdown passes. But he has done all this versus 2 of the worst defenses in the league. The Rams are not that. They give up the 9th fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. Rams have only allowed 1 passing touchdown on the year. And Aaron Donald is licking his chops for this matchup. I imagine he'll lean heavy. I imagine Brady will lean heavy on Gronk since the Rams are a bit vulnerable versus the tight end, and Antonio Brown is out. Did I not mention that at the beginning?
No, he's playing. He was playing. He was practicing today.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought they. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second.
He was on the COVID list. He was in. I believe he's off now. I will bet that while you can keep going, as long as there isn't a shiny object in my field of vision.
Brady is on another level right now, and he'll be a top 12 QB this week in a heated matchup. 4.25 stars. That's a heated matchup, folks, with a little hot plate under it, So, on to the running backs that I hate. Rojo, that one's just for Josh. Lenny Fournette and Gio. Jones started, but Fournette out-touched him 15-7. I want no part to do with this backfield, but if there's a guy to be had, it's Fournette. 1.5 stars, bench the rest. Chris Godwin, another nice week from Rod God as he scores again, averaging 9 targets, 83.5 yards, and 1 touchdown a game. He is the wide receiver 13 on the season. His targets dropped a bit, but I wonder if Tampa pulled out their starters because it was such a blowout. I'm not sure about that. Well, I think Gronk will be featured. Well, I think Gronk will be featured a bit more in this matchup. Godwin is still able to go off at any time and seems to have a rapport with Brady, so I'm going to give him a solid 4 stars. Mike Evans. Evans showed up big with 2 touchdowns and 9 targets in week 2. This is kind of what we expected, but it was nice to see that there was enough to go around this week for Evans and Godwin. With AB out.
Question mark?
With AB out, I think we see more toe
Are you
tight.
legit asking?
Yeah, I am.
To be determined. He
Okay.
has to pop. He did test positive for COVID, but
So he has
he
to get
can
2
still
negative
play with
tests.
2 negative tests.
All right.
Which,
Yeah.
knowing how the league loves Tom Brady, he'll probably come back with 2 negative tests, even though he probably has like airborne syphilis.
With AB out, I think we see more 2 tight end sets, and Evans sees more looks also. 3.5 stars for Mike Evans. If AB goes, I'm going to lower Godwin to 3.75 stars, lower Evans to 3 stars, and AB is going to get 3 stars also because fence riding. Gronk, he's virtually tied with Kelsey for tight end 1. He looks young. 4 touchdown, leads the league at tight end.
Nope.
Should be high. What?
Oh, fantasy points, he's not number 1.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
he's tied.
yeah, he's got 4 touchdowns. His volume's a bit lower, but very efficient. Should be highly featured in this one since tight end seems to be the only perceived weakness for the Rams. Doyle for the Colts, week 2, received 8 targets and caught 5 of them for 64 yards. Not too bad. And Comet had that nice, terribly misleading week 1 with nice usage, catching 5 out of 7 targets for 42 yards. Yes, that one was for you, Josh. Gronk should have a nice day and probably score here. 4.5 stars. On to, we already did AB. On to the Rams.
How dare you besmirch Cole Kmet? I'm sorry, keep going.
Stafford and Kupp are cooking, and the Tampa defense isn't playing well. The Bucs have given up 684 passing yards in 2 weeks, bad enough for 3rd worst, also tied for 6th most touchdowns given up with 5, and 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. This will be a duel of veterans on new teams with lofty aspirations. Yes, I know it's not a brand new team for Brady. 5 stars for Stafford. Darrell Henderson. Now let's talk rushing defense. Tampa is great once again. It would seem after 2 weeks they have second best with 115 rushing yards given up total. Only one rushing touchdown given up. Only 11th best versus fantasy backs. But, that was thanks mostly to Cordell Patterson catching a 27-yard touchdown and running one in week 2. So I'm not saying omit it, but I'm saying I'm definitely taking that into account when I think about the rushing defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm saying fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, exactly. Henderson has been very solid. He's the RB6 on the year. He also seems to have the lead job sewn up. That's a 94% snap share in week 1, 68% in week 2. Sony did spike a little with a 27% snap share in week 2, but I think it's just fine.
John.
But with this Tampa D still being dominant versus run and having given up a butt ton of passing yards to Dallas and Atlanta, I expect a pass-centric attack for Stafford and the Rams. Still, Henderson is flex-worthy with 3 stars. Cooper Kupp. Well, it seems clear we were right that Kupp would be the better fantasy wide receiver on the Rams. He is the wide receiver 1 in the league right now, thanks in large part to leading the league in receptions with 16 and 5th in targets with 21. Coincidentally, guess who's first in targets? CD with 24. Pass save approach means Kupp goes off. 5 stars for Cooper Kupp. Robert Woods. Should be enough volume for Woods to do some damage too. Not to mention he had his best game of the season versus this very similar Tampa defense last year, where he caught 12 of his 15 targets for a score and scored. 3.5 stars for Robert Woods. On to the third receiver, Van Jefferson. Fun fact, I legitimately thought this guy's last name was Van Jefferson, and everybody just always called him by his last name, like Dick Van Dyke. I also learned that Dick Van Dyke I believe his last name is actually Dyke, and Van is a middle name. Last fun fact, I promise. Jefferson's first name is actually Vanchi. That's Vanchi. So yeah, Van Jefferson. I'm an idiot. Snap percent was slightly skewed.
I thought you said Comanche, and I'm like, I don't think that's...
No, Vanchi, or Vanchi. Pretty sure it's Vanchi.
Okay.
His snap percent was slightly skewed in Kupp's favor in week 1, but came back to a very close even split in week 2 for the 3 Rams wideouts, with each playing 100, 98%, and 92% respectively. So Kupp, Woods, Jefferson. Jefferson will have these disappearing act games, nothing surprising here, but he is a threat to score in a matchup like this. tied for the highest over-under at 55.5 points. I'm going to give him 2.75 stars to give him in that.
Head in dart
flex-worthy.
throw.
Well, he's a receiver, so there's that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about.
No, I'm still on Mr. Jefferson, aka Van Jefferson.
Oh my God, get on with it, man! I want to hear about what's his face.
Tyler Higbee.
Yeah.
Similar to Van Jefferson, Higbee could have dud games, but is involved most weeks and could score here. Tampa gives up the 12th most fantasy points to tight ends, and again, have given up a ton of passing yards in the first 2 weeks. Pitts pulled in 5 of his 6 targets for 73 yards in week 2. Week 1, Dallas, Dalton Schultz and Jarwin combined for 9 for 9 for their catching 9 of their targets for 65 yards. Pretty good. So I like Higbee this week. No touchdowns to tight ends yet for Tampa, but 77 yards per game. That's third worst. Give me 3.5 stars for Higbee. And that is my last matchup, Josh.
I legit thought when you said like Van Jefferson, you were going to say, I thought that Tyler Higbee was his last name. And his first name was like James or something, and everyone just called him Tyler
Tylerhigbee. Yeah, exactly. I had to include that Van Jefferson. I really thought it's because isn't that like I don't know if it's like European or Swedish or what, but like Van Jefferson, Van Dyke. Like I always thought that was like the whole first name. I'm sorry, the whole last name.
Like Leonardo da Vinci just means he's from Vinci or
well,
Vienna,
that's Da Vinci. Yeah. Does it? Is that what that means?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Yeah, his name is first name is Van. His last name is Jefferson.
Like everyone in the world already thought. Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers at the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron Rodgers. This is a difficult call on Rodgers after what he did in week 1 versus what he did in week 2.
Mm-hmm.
And even in week 2, he didn't have a lot of yards. He just had a lot of touchdowns to Aaron Jones and to Davonte Adams, right? Anyways, in week 1, the Niners let Jared Goff rack up garbage time fantasy points. In week 2, they stifled Jalen Hurts in the passing game. So it's like I said, it's a really tough call, but I'm going to go with the hands down future Hall of Famer and Aaron Rodgers. He looked good last week. It was against the Lions, but I've got faith in Rodgers, so I'm going to go 4 stars here. On to Aaron Jones, like I just mentioned, or like I mentioned earlier, Aaron Jones had 4 touchdowns last week on Monday Night Football. I wouldn't think that he's going to do it again, but I think Jones should have a solid game against the Niners D. The Niners, are giving him 133.5 rushing yards per game and 22.3 fantasy points per game. And both of those are in bottom 10 of their respective categories. And A.J. Dillon is just not really getting enough work to really cut into that 22.3 fantasy points. So I think Jones is locked and loaded for a good game this week. Not 4 touchdowns good, but I'm still going to give him 4.25 stars. Davonte Adams. Do you think that Davonte Adams feels a little left out on the whole Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones? Do you think that he wishes that he was Aaron Adams? No?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, probably not.
Maybe it'll be in his contract. He has to legally change his name to sign that new deal. Mm-hmm.
According to PFF, Davonte Adams has the best matchup this week against the opposing 49ers cornerbacks, and with a 98.4 percentile here. That's pretty good. Despite the 49ers allowing only 17.3 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. 4 stars for Adams here as well. Guess I'm misremembering all my grades from earlier when I was like, just like 3-star Tracy.
3-star Thursday? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to Robert Tonyan, who is getting 3 stars and also 3/4 as well. He looks to get a lot of outside linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, who has a PFF grade of 42.9. That's not good, folks. The Niners in general have been allowing 10.5 fantasy points to opposing tight ends, which is the 9th most. That bodes well for Mr. Tonyan. My only problem with Tonyan here is that he scored just 14.5 total fantasy points this season. That's 7.25 per game. I think he is. I think he belongs in that gray area, like with Noah Fant in that tight end dart, like better than the tight end dart throw, but he's still not good or elite. So you're starting Robert Tonyan. I wish there was more production from him.
Just not a lot
I
of
really
targets,
do.
not a lot of volume right now, but he did catch the
Yeah,
touchdown. Yeah.
we'll see what happens. We'll see what the story is in another couple weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo here on the 49ers side of the ball. He's averaging just 17.6 points per game, which I thought was weird. I thought he was doing better than that. But I guess when you don't watch every single game in the world, it's kind of hard to get, you just have these kind of I thought he was doing better than that. The Packers are only allowing 193 passing yards per game. That is seventh best. That's pretty good. The problem with that stat is that Jameis Winston only threw for 148 yards in week 1 because that was just like it was a weird statistical anomaly or whatever. But last week Goff only threw for 246 too. Neither of those are all that great, and Jimmy G has a chance to be on the higher end of that range of 148 to the 246. And I picked up Jimmy Garoppolo in our Superflex league, and I'm currently having my starting roster. So I have confidence that Garoppolo can do something this week. But the last thing I have to say is, and this is against him, he's only thrown 1 touchdown in each game. So 3 stars for Jimmy Garoppolo. On to Elijah Mitchell. It sounds like he's not going to play this week. If he doesn't play and Trey Sermons ends up doing so, I believe we said at the top of the show that the Packers are giving up the second most points and yards to opposing backs. So whoever is playing in the 49ers whoever the running back is for the 49ers this week, you got to give him at least a 3-star rating, right? Like you have to at least consider him in your flex, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Which honestly could be Kerryon Johnson. He is on their practice squad.
Yeah.
Just saying. Deebo Samuel, I'm giving you 3 stars. This is bad, and it hurts me to say this, but whether Deebo is going up against Jair Alexander, who is PFF's 22nd cornerback, or their rookie corner, whose name I didn't write down, weirdly, even though I thought I did, that would be the Packers corner, who is ranked 9th. It's going to be a tough day. Deebo is currently the wide receiver 3 through the first two weeks, and it's going to be nearly impossible to sit him. It really will be. I'm going to have problems sitting him, but just don't expect the 20.3 points per game that he's been averaging so far. On Travis Kelce or George Kittle, not Travis Kelce. 4.25 stars here. The Packers are giving up the 3rd most points to opposing tight ends at 14.3 points per game. So if Kittle goes and has a good game, even though he's been putting up a couple of clunkers so far this year, I think that we might want to start thinking about starting tight ends against the Packers.
Yeah.
That's all the matchups, Chris. That's all of them. Real quick, before we sign off, it says that CMC has a hamstring injury. That's what my phone says. That's what you said. I just had to confirm it before I ghost added your ass. If CMC is going to miss multiple weeks like he did last year with a hamstring injury, Chuba Hubbard. How much fab are you spending on him?
Fun fact, they had the other guy come in for a snap, but then Hubbard came right back in. To answer your question, I
Real
think
quick, man, just throw a number out there.
20%.
I'm going
tops. 20% tops. Probably more like 18%.
Well,
tops.
let's see what he does by the end of this game. But
yeah. This is
I'm thinking 25.
This is
20?
This is kind of directly related because if you play good defense, which the Carolina Panthers have been the best defense in the league over 2 weeks, they probably just lost their starting rookie sensation quarterback JC Horn to an ACL. Probably. I'm literally going off what it looked like when the injury happened and how quickly he turned to the sideline and waved it over.
That's been Dr. Chris.
So you're right. So your 2-0 Panthers, that's a shame, man. And I think Hubbard is a little less valuable with a worse defense if this guy makes that big of a difference. And again, I don't think we all know it's not a 1-for-1 CMC. Like Davis did okay last year, but we know he's nothing special. 18% off the top of my head.
Okay. Let's see what he does by the end of this game, and we'll cover this on let's call me Captain Segue here. You can check out that information and the Monday night matchup and last minute injury news and lineup questions with the Sunday stream. You can check us out on our YouTube channel. We start at 10 a.m. every Sunday. We don't know where you live, so you do the math. We do know where you live.
10 a.m. Central.
But we really don't, but we do. So it starts 10 a.m. Central Time. We know where you live. No, we don't. Mm-hmm. If you're checking us out in YouTube format, you can check us out on podcasts. If you don't like to take your YouTubes on the go, you can get your podcasts wherever podcasts are available, and vice versa. If you're in podcast format and you feel like just checking out our ugly mugs on your TV or even your phone screen, probably phone screen. You don't want this face being that big.
4K.
You can check us out on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search Amazing Fantasy Football. You can also check out our Twitter at amazingffb707.
Amazing Fantasy 7, I believe it is called.
Amazing Fantasy 7.
Yep.
I said it. I don't remember what it is. I don't do the Twitters.
Yep. Amazing Fantasy 7.
And check out in the show notes for whether it's in the podcast or on the YouTube channel to join our Discord server. You can always just kind of add us, or even just throw general questions out there of lineup things too, like everyone else in there. Just some friends and family and whatever that's there. That we just have a good time in there. So,
ball.
Yeah. Literally a ball. We have one ball in there.
And we throw it around like children. Anyway.
That's been our show, everyone. That was the worst outro ever. Good night.
Later.
Or day.